Hello everyone and welcome back to another JaayB Life, so the newly rebranded Life series that's taken a different turn than I would have expected in the last couple of weeks. So it's been a while since I've done a video. I mean, a couple of weeks, I think halfway through December was when I uploaded the last one, which was just my placement games. I think I've done another JaayB Life as well. Let me check YouTube. Okay, so yeah. I done a pilot episode for a new Minecraft series, which, whilst the views were terrible in terms of, just getting exposure, the engagement seemed okay. I mean, it's something that I'm okay to carry on with if I can get the server up or we can get the server up and running again at some point in the future. But right now there's issues with the server, but that's secondary. The server issues are not what's causing the delay in actually getting round to me doing this. So I have a story to tell, and it's not a happy story, unfortunately. You can probably tell from the title of this video that I am broken. I unfortunately broke my arm the Thursday before Christmas. So when was that? So Thursday the 22nd, I'd just finished the day before. I had just finished work to go on annual leave for 2.5 days. Because I had to use it up. I was like, I'll have the 2 days before Christmas, and I took back some time in lieu. And it was going fine, casual days, normal days. I had shopping to do and whatnot. But it turned out. But I went to play football as I do every Thursday, or I have been doing every Thursday for about half a year or so. I hadn't played for a couple of weeks because I've had engagements with Christmas meals and family meals and other plans and things just sort of got in the way, so I wasn't able to attend. Oh, excuse me, I'm tired. And unfortunately during that time I completely destroyed my arm. Now, as I said before, this is not a pleasant story. It's something that actually once you've seen what happens when you break a bone that bad, it's something that stays with you for a long time, and it's not for the faint of heart, really, to even go through. A lot of people pass out from the pain. I did not, unfortunately, much to my paramedic's disappointment. So basically, let's start from the beginning. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to normalise these levels later on. I'm going up and down all over the place, but the audio quality in this video is not going to be fantastic because I'm at my parents' trying recovery at the moment, and I have no microphone. I'm literally using the built-in microphone of the laptop. So yeah, apologies for the sound quality, but let's get on with how I managed to completely break my arm. So, football. I am not a light man. I've gone through a lot of stress this year, just due to lots of difficulties with stress with my work, time constraints with life, social obligations and whatnot. It's been a difficult year, especially when, I don't know, apparently the relationship was unhappy, and maybe that's how I dealt with it, is I ordered pizza a lot. So I put on quite a few, the 2 stone that I lost the year prior, I have put back on this year due to depression and just not having drive to do much other than see myself eat a pizza. So I'm currently heaviest I've ever been. Roughly, to when I weigh, it depends on when I weigh myself. I can be anywhere from 14 stone 10 to 14 stone 7. It's something I'm working on now, but it's a hard thing to work on. I still like to exercise. I go to the gym and whatnot. I just eat more than I should, and because I've not played in a long time, when I was playing football, I went into a full sprint. So I was halfway across the pitch. I just thought, what, I'm going to go for this. Someone had the ball. It went over to the corner. I went into a full sprint to kind of catch it and catch the person and go for a tackle. Halfway through the sprint, when I just reached maximum velocity that I could, I began to stumble. I lost my footing. I blame the shoes. Every man blames his tools, right? But these shoes have caused me issues in the past. So these are AstroTurf shoes. So they go really thin in the middle and they dig in slightly to the pitch. But I've rolled my ankle 2 or 3 times on these shoes. to the point that they go, 90 degrees or more. I've not broken my ankle, but I've just rolled it completely horrifically. I don't know why I keep wearing these shoes. I'm going to throw them out or something because they're just causing me so much grief. But I stumbled. Maybe it was my fault, maybe it was the shoes, I don't know. But I went into a full stumble, and you do that thing where you're falling forwards, but you keep trying to pick yourself up and get back, straight. So you're kind of halfway down fallen, but you're still going, like you're still walking forwards. It's weird. I was doing that. So every step I took, I was going down, but in a very horizontal fashion. This is what I remember, and unfortunately I ran out of pitch, and I realised I was going to hit the solid wooden barrier of this five-a-side AstroTurf pitch, which was not good. So when I realised I was actually going to hit this, I decided I had to tuck my head in to avoid a head injury and kind of go and take the impact on the broad side of my shoulder, like you would if you were going into like a rugby scrum or something. Not sure what the American equivalent would be for this. I don't know, American football lock. When you go in for a shoulder tackle, I guess. So I decided that's probably the best course of action right now. I can't do, and there's no other way I can move my body. Oh, hello, spider. I literally looked up and there was a spider like in front of my eye. So there's no other way I could have moved my body in order to take the impact better. That's what I had decided in my head. Maybe there was. Maybe I could have done something to avoid, what I'd done. But this is what happened in the moment. This is what my brain decided to do. Whether it was good or bad, or the best or worst scenario, I don't know. But I would rather have done that than take the full force of that smash on my skull and put the pressure on my neck, because I'm pretty sure if I took that on the skull I would have broken my neck. And that's just my thoughts now. At some point during the impact on the way to the ground, so after the initial impact, I didn't feel a lot of pain. Initially it was just sort of like shock. Everyone heard the crash, everyone looked over. It was quite a loud sound. It covered up any other sound of anything breaking. Like, I didn't hear any internals going click or crunch or anything like that. I just felt and heard the impact of my body on this solid chunk of wood. So on the way down from that initial impact, raising my head back up, looking over at my arm, it didn't look right at all. It was what it looked like at the time, in that half a second that I had to look at my arm on the way down to the ground, it looked like it had my left elbow had dislocated and hyperextended, so it was bent the wrong way. That's what it had looked like in those split seconds. That's what my brain recognised. And immediately when I started to see that, I just screamed and didn't stop. I hit the ground after that. It's hard to really remember what happened then, but immediately after hitting the ground and not being able to physically move myself, just because of the pain, I was moved into a position, the recovery position, where you're on your side. I was laid to my right side, leaning on my right shoulder / arm, with my other arm sort of just leaning across, in an L shape upwards. So it was resting in a natural position, but if anyone tried to touch it or move it or breathe on it, it was the worst pain you could ever imagine. So let's just take into account that it was a Thursday night, so we play football at 7 o'clock every Thursday, and it was not warm. I mean, it's not as cold as it's ever been, but it was not warm in England. It was actually surprisingly cold that night. I would say, between 1 and 4 degrees. We were keeping warm through exercise, it's what we do. So I was starting to get cold instantly. People put all their coats on me. They weren't sure really what was going on, so we called the ambulance. We had the paramedic, we had the first aider come over. We called an ambulance, and initially we couldn't see any deformity in the bone. Like, everyone, just like myself, thought it was dislocated and hyperextended. I don't know if that would have been better or worse. I mean, I know a dislocated shoulder, they just pop it back in, and that would be that. I don't know if it would have been the same for an elbow. So we called them up. I was I don't know. Maybe I was in shock that the whole thing had happened, because this thing happens to you, and you're just like, this terrible thing has happened to you, and you're just thinking, why the fuck? Excuse my language, but why the fuck has this happened? And you're just there like, why am I now this statistic that bad things have happened to? That's how I felt. I was just sort of there, like, just thinking why for a long time. We got through, or they got through, to the emergency services to see if we needed, or they could get an ambulance out to me. So they initially described what was a dislocation. The guy on the end of the phone was asking stupid questions, but I guess they have to. So he physically wanted to talk to me, and of course I was just in a lot of pain on the floor, so I had to have the phone held to my ear. But he was asking me things like, is there any blood? Does your chest feel normal? How much pain are you in? Just things like that. What do you think it is? Your name, address, date of birth, stuff like that. And initially, we all thought it was a dislocated elbow, as I said, and the guy was like, okay, it's not life-threatening. We're not going to send out an ambulance. You will need to make your own way to the emergency room. So I was like, okay, or the emergency room, so accident and emergency, A&E in England. So everyone was like, okay, we need to get him into a car somehow. And I'm quite far away from the cars at this moment. We're on a pitch, like complete opposite side of the car park. And it's quite a trip to get there. You have to it's even like a bit of a walk to get to the pitches from the car park. So it's quite awkward, and it would have been a long and painful trip, even if I had just a dislocated elbow. When they tried to roll me onto my back to move me, I had some choice words to say about that, and I was not budging. It was absolutely agonizing. Like the slightest movement in my arm, just anywhere, like doesn't matter how. Like if I was to, I couldn't move my forearm. I can move my fingers and my wrist, but anything below the shoulder, between my wrist and so base of my elbow, was gone. That was just unable to move completely. If I tried, it was agonizing, and if people moved it for me, it was agonizing. And when people say the word agonizing, I don't think you can truly understand it unless you felt it. And in the past, if you see someone shot in the movies, or you see it have, someone's arm breaks, or you see a compound fracture, and you hear like, oh, it was agonizing. You don't really understand that pain until you've been through it. So if you've not been through it, then you won't really understand just how painful it is. In terms of 0 to childbirth, it's quite up there. I'm not sure if it's as painful, but I'm sure many people would argue it's not. It wasn't enough for me to pass out. I wish it was sometimes, just because it was, I would like to just forget all of that happened to me. But eventually, after about 30 to 40 minutes of being on the floor in the freezing cold, like I had coats on me, but the cold, I wasn't moving. Like I was completely stationary. I was beginning to have trouble breathing. Of course, I couldn't move anything to keep myself warm. Everyone was sort of kind of worried because I'd been on this cold floor for so long and not moved. The ambulance finally arrived after we called them back and said, look, we tried to move him, he's not moving, we can see some deformity in the arm, we need an ambulance. And they sent an ambulance over at that point. So the ambulance crew got here and instantly said, that's broken. Which is like, yay, finally, now we know it's more serious than we thought, and we can do something about it. But they brought some gas with them, and that gas, oh Jesus Christ, the gas, they gave me gas instantly. But they needed to move me from my side to my back. And when we'd previously tried to do that, I wasn't budging. Like it was agonizing. So maybe it's a placebo of the gas, but it's not. The gas actually works. But the gas is what they give you, or give pregnant ladies in labour. But I was inhaling that stuff, and I went through like the entire bottle there on the pitch, just having them move me from my side to my back, and up so they could get my arm into a sling. So I'm not going to go through the entire steps of what the ambulance crew, what I went through, but when they were holding my arm to prepare it for the sling, she could feel, the bone crunching where I'd broken it. So she was holding my wrist or my forearm up into the right ankle position, but she could hear my bone just crunching away like at every movement, and it was not pleasant. Like, if she could feel it just holding my arm, how do you think I felt when it was happening to me? And it's that moment, probably one of the most painful ever in my life. So just going from the floor to into a sling position, that period. And it was at that point that they said, look, if it's too painful, feel free to pass out. And I was like, I would love to. I would really love to. I'd just love to wake up in a hospital with a cast on. You've done what you need to. That would be, fine. I don't know what they would have done to me if I was unconscious, because they might catheterize me, and I would not like that. And thank you, Facebook. So yeah, that was excruciating, but they managed to sling me up, put me on gas. I went through like 3 cans of the stuff. My breathing was erratic, so I wasn't really taking it in either. It wasn't until they explained that you need to control your breathing, calm down, that it will go into your system and, actually take effect for a while. So eventually I got to the hospital. They put it in a cast straight away, and put me into x-ray, but it wasn't until 2 days later. So they said, look, looking at the x-rays, you're going to need surgery. And I wasn't sure how serious the surgery was. I hadn't seen the x-rays at this point. They said, you're going to need surgery. We'll put it in a cast for the moment, and we'll just send you off to a ward somewhere. So it was, close to Christmas. It wasn't as busy as it normally was, which was nice, but I still had to wait, what was almost 2 days for my surgery to take place. They starved me for 12 hours to say, you've got your surgery tomorrow. And then when that didn't happen, they gave me something to eat and said, right, now you can starve yourself again because you've got your surgery tomorrow. But that day in a cast with a broken arm was, so it was not fun. You're just there waiting, for someone to slice you up. And especially when your arm is broken, it's the bone is severed. There's no physical solid connection between, your shoulder and your elbow. Like, that connection's gone. It's a weird feeling. You can move the top bit. It's like a little stick. You can move the top, but if you do that, you feel this weird sensation of nothing else going with it. And it's agonizing again, and 2, it's just weird. I laugh about it now. Like, I can laugh and joke, but it's something that will, you're not going to forget. So also, whilst I was there, they had issues finding my vein. So not only was I had a broken left arm, but my right arm is also full of holes from failed attempts to put the IV drip in my arm, and eventually what the fuck was that? Eventually they put one in my hand as well for when I went into surgery. So yeah, it was an uncomfortable couple of days until they wheeled me down for my surgery. So I've never had surgery before, and I was extremely nervous because everyone who goes through surgery, they said, oh, it's fine, but you always hear those stories that someone wasn't quite put under enough and they felt everything going on and they felt the pain and everything. And I was extremely paranoid about that because, it's just, paranoia that everyone has. But they managed. I was in the anaesthetic room. They were talking to me. The last thing I remember was them putting on the gas, or some gas to my face, and then I remember feeling groggy and seeing a nurse in front of me in a ward, and then I fell back asleep, and then I woke up in another ward by someone who was extremely loud. Let's just say they weren't normal. Let's just leave it at that. I don't know how to say it in terms that's PC these days, but let's just say they were special. I don't know. Is that insulting? Whatever. But there's something wasn't quite normal with this person. So they were constantly hitting the nurse buzzer and screaming, talk to me, listen to me. That's all I heard for the first half an hour of waking up in that ward after my surgery. And they eventually moved them that person into a private room, I think, to keep them quiet and just let everyone else get some rest. But yeah, that was that was Christmas Eve. I had my surgery, and it lasted about 5 hours. Yeah, initially they thought, it would maybe be an hour or two, but I was in surgery for a long time, longer than anyone thought, and it was because it was not a nice break. So that's pretty much kind of the hospital story. I mean, I was in there until Boxing Day, so I was in hospital for Christmas this year. I couldn't feel my left arm at all after the surgery because they'd done a nerve block, and I had to relearn how to move my wrist and my hand. They were very nervous that there might have been some nerve damage, so that's why they kept me in for as long as they did, because they had to check and wait for the nerve block that they'd done on my shoulder to wear off before they can see, like, has any damage occurred during surgery. Like, if they fuck up and suddenly I can't use my wrist or my hand, then they're liable for horrible lawsuits. So they were quite worried about that. They're all very nice and lovely, but they kept coming around and poking my hand, like, can you feel this, and stroking me in weird places on the hand. Let's just say on the hand, saying, can you feel this? And I was like, nope. And it wasn't until like a complete day later that I'd regained full control of my hand. It still feels tight and pins and needles, and I'm worried that there's some slight damage. It's something that I'm very paranoid about, that I'm not going to have full range of motion again. I mean, I feel like I've got it now, but there are some angles that it's just really painful. But we'll just have to see how the recovery goes. So I'm going to show you the X-rays just to see so you can see how broken I currently am. So I'm in a sling at the moment. I've got no cast on, but they had to open my arm right up. Like, the incision was from my elbow, literally my elbow, all the way up to just below my shoulder. So it runs pretty much the length of my upper arm. So it was my humerus that I broke, by the way. I'm not sure if I said that already, but it was the humerus, and it was literally like just below the ball of the humerus where it broke. So I'm going to show you the incision, and I'll show you in a minute why it was so large that they had to put this incision in. So the incision, as you can see now, hopefully I've put the picture up, runs from my elbow all the way up my arm. That's going to leave a very, very nasty scar. Nothing I can do about it, nothing anyone can do about it. I mean, that's going to be with me for life now, because I was an idiot and I couldn't keep my footing at football. The reason they had to do an incision that big is because when I had fallen, it was a very nasty break. It had broken, it wasn't a clean break by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, if you look at my X-rays, which should be on the screen now, you can see that it snapped in like sort of two ends to form what's called a butterfly segment. So there's this little wedge of triangle that's broken off because of the fractures, going up and down the bone at an angle. So that's that come off. So that's two fractures right there. So minimum 2 fractures in my arm. But above that, in addition to that butterfly segment itself was also fragmented and almost crushed and smushed in such a way that it had multiple fractures running up it. So it was split into this sort of wedge, and then up that wedge. If you go long ways, instead of just across the bone, it went up the bone. So that was sort of split as well, and in almost shattered. So if you look at the X-rays, you could see it's just sort of floating there in a very unnatural and painful position. And the surgery they done, you could see when I talked to the surgeon the last week, he said, what you've got is called a bloody great plate. So they literally just fitted a massive plate that runs pretty much the entire length of my bone to secure it. But you can see from the X-rays, there's no screws in the segment that's split off because I don't think they could. I mean, if they tried to drill into it, they would have just split the bone more. It was too damaged for them to really do anything. He didn't say that to me, in specifically, but he did say it was too damaged, and looking at the X-rays, that's my hypothesis. So I now have a massive titanium plate in my left arm, and I'm held together like Meccano, and I can't move my left arm. I can move my wrist and my fingers, but other than that it is pretty much immobile at the moment, so it makes doing anything a challenge. Like I'm home with my family for them to look after me, but it's extremely embarrassing for someone who's so independent like me. You know, I moved out because I wanted my independence, and I couldn't stand, that's a bit strong, but you know, I was getting fed up of living with my family and all the stresses that come with, you know, living as part of that, you know, living as someone else's household instead of your own. So yeah, it's a Christmas I will never forget. Am I happy about it? Absolutely not. I mean, I'm signed off for 6 weeks. I've purchased some game making and coding courses online, so I'm going to work through those and I'll see how it goes. But yeah, that was my Christmas and New Year's. It's been tough. It's been very upsetting for everyone in my family. But you know, it's head up, chin up, stiff upper lip, carry on forward. There are people who have it worse than me, but obviously everyone kind of like, screw those people, you know, this is terrible enough for me as it is. I feel bad for saying that now. But yeah, that's JaayB Life number 2. So maybe at some point I can start on self-improvement and do the road to recovery, where I can start exercising and moving it into therapy. But I'm signed off for 6 weeks, and I think the best course of action now is to just keep myself occupied and make sure my mind does not dull from watching too many videos and YouTube and Netflix and all that lot. So yeah, I hope you all had a better holiday than I did, and I'll see you when I see you. I'm not sure when the next video will be, but I'll make sure to keep you all updated. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll be able to get all the updates, well, the ones I can be bothered to post. So yeah, thanks very much for listening, and I will see you next time.